I'm really passionate about kind of knowing how folks pass on their knowledge. So you've got this incredible family, have been able to raise some pretty amazing children. Was there kind of a path that you took them on in terms of sharing some of this knowledge that you've been gaining over the years, teaching them some of the lessons with regards to financial freedom, to investments, things like that? Was that a topic that was talked about a lot as they were coming up? What's been kind of your approach to that?
So my daughter we set up a policy for her in college. She invested during her summers in college. As soon as she got out, she bought a property with her, then fiance. And they bought a single family rental. They spent 18 months in it, kind of house hacking and fixing things up. They turned around and made about $130,000 profit in less than 2 years selling the property.
The Be Do Have framework has been core to so many things that we do, and it's pretty amazing when you realize we've got a big philosophy that business is fantastic and you want to grow and build a business, but at the end of the day, business is a vehicle for the life that you want to live.
There's 4 key dimensions to it, but one of them is how fast are you in terms of a quick start? Like, do you take an idea and you just run with it? So I know if you got entrepreneurs in the audience, most of them are high quick starts. Take an idea and just completely run with it. How are you going to execute it? No idea.
Most entrepreneurs think building wealth means grinding harder, maxing out the 401k, and praying that the stock market doesn't crash. But here's the truth. The ultra wealthy don't play by those rules. They use systems and strategies that most business owners have never even heard of. Today on The Ownership Advantage, I am joined by Dave Wolcott, a former Marine turned serial entrepreneur, the founder of Pantheon Investments, and the author of The Holistic Wealth Strategy. Dave has invested in everything from real estate to oil wells, and he's on a mission to help entrepreneurs like us create freedom beyond money, freedom of time, freedom of purpose, and of relationships. In this conversation today, Dave breaks down his 5-phase holistic wealth strategy, why traditional financial planning keeps entrepreneurs trapped, and the specific moves the ultra wealthy use to multiply their wealth while protecting their downside. If you've ever wondered how to take control of your money and build true generational wealth, then this episode is for you. Let's dive in with my guest, Dave Wolcott. Welcome, Dave. Now, you devoted your career to helping others generate some wealth. How does your approach differ from most others in the market today?
Hey, Tanner, grateful to be here to connect with you and your audience. And yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think it's probably one that will actually resonate with your audience really well, basically entrepreneurs. So, it kind of really ties back to a little bit of my origin story, just to provide a little context, I think, for the listeners, which is, I was raised in a middle-class family, and I was told that the recipe for success was go to school, get good grades, you're going to get a job, and life would just kind of work out for you, right? So I kind of had that opportunity to do that, to go to college. I did the ROTC program, got into the Marine Corps, traveled the world, was combat tested, and really learned some things in the Marines they don't teach you anywhere else, things such as leadership, teamwork, and integrity. After that, I transitioned into the corporate world and just really got quickly frustrated with losing that sense of purpose and that sense of mission that really drove me so strongly in the Marine Corps. And then at the same time, my wife and I started raising a family. We had an 18-month-old toddler, and then on October 24th, 2000, we literally had triplets and quadrupled the size of our family overnight. So I can tell you, Tanner, like holding 3 babies in my arms at the same time was just like, it just blew me away, and that paternal instinct inside of me was just saying, okay, how am I going to provide for, financial security for my family? right? As a father, I felt really strongly about that. And, I also wanted to live life and do a lot of different things. And they're saying it's $1 million to raise a kid. And, here I am, 26 and trying to figure that out. So I went to see my financial planner. And he told me, the same thing that they all tell you, which was, max out your 401k plan. They have things called 529 plans that you can invest in for the kids. And I'll tell you, it was right then, Tanner, that I knew, building wealth as a retail investor in the stock market was not going to be the trajectory that I wanted to be on, that would take me, to realize the vision that I wanted. So this launched me on this obsessive journey to really figure out how the top 1%, the top 0.01% were really building wealth. So I started investing in all kinds of different asset classes, everything from single-family rentals, multifamily, syndications, office buildings, retail, raw land, oil and gas. I invested in all kinds of different private assets. And then fast forward to today, and I really created Pantheon. And to answer your original question, really encapsulated everything that I learned over the past 25 years in my book called The Holistic Wealth Strategy, which is really an approach, really thinking about building wealth like an entrepreneur, not like Wall Street prescribes, right? Because that's conventional wisdom for conventional people doing conventional thinking, right? And as entrepreneurs, one of the biggest opportunities we have is, I know your audience is educated, so I'm assuming, and if you haven't, you need to read Cash Flow Quadrant by, Robert Kiyosaki. And in fact, I just had Shannon Lecter on our podcast, who was the co-author and CEO of Rich Dad, and she was the one who actually helped, create that framework. Yeah, so, the Cash Flow Quadrant, right, was one of the most amazing pieces of knowledge, right, that Robert Kiyosaki put out. And if you understand as an entrepreneur and business owner that to be a business owner and an investor on the right-hand side of the quadrant, not only will you pay the least amount of taxes, but you have the most amount of opportunities, right? And that's actually, we have 6,000 pages of tax code, right, that's out there. And if you understand how to leverage it, it's actually a roadmap of incentives, right? So once I really had that clarity and I could figure out how to partner with the government by investing in things, such as asset classes like, apartment buildings that they want you to invest in, then you can actually partner with them and get amazing tax breaks, right? And not to mention the fact that as an entrepreneur, you can also have unlimited upside in terms of the capital that you could create, right? So I wanted to fundamentally, live in this construct, right, which is really being in a pay for performance, type of model versus the traditional economic model, which is a time and effort economic model that most people are in, where they're just trading their time for money. So once I really understood this, and then I started investing in all types of alternative asset classes, I realized that I could actually reduce or eliminate your number one biggest expense, which is taxes. So then that frees up additional capital that you can then deploy into other assets such as your business or other investments that will then start to create cash flow. And instead of waiting until you're 65, for some retirement number, nest egg, you can actually have enough passive income that exceeds your expenses today. And really, this is all about freedom, Tanner. At the end of the day, we want not only freedom of money, right, to be able to live a big life. It's also about freedom of purpose and waking up every day and being fascinated and motivated by the work you do. It's freedom of relationships. So I get to spend time with, people like yourself, like-minded people who are, creating change and impact in the world, and freedom of time, right? To be able to spend time as I choose to work on my health, my fitness, my family, my faith, and things that are important to me.
I love that so much, and yet for the audience, if you have not read really any of the books in Kiyosaki's kind of series, Rich Dad series, from Cash Flow Quadrant to Rich Dad Poor Dad to like tax free wealth and different things like that, definitely go check those out. I know that they're sitting on a shelf just outside of my office here. Sharon Lechter, have had the opportunity to see her speak a number of times. She'll actually be here in, I think, Houston in just about a month's time for BizX. Another conference that we'll be going to. So I absolutely love all of that stuff here. And, I actually want to take us back just a little bit to some of that history that you told us right off the bat. Specifically, I want to go to, being 26 years old and now having 4 kids, 3 of them being triplets. And, being a father myself, I can't imagine having more than one at a time. I've got 2 currently, and that just must have been an insane time to kind of have to go through. Take me back to that moment. What was going through your head? I know you kind of gave us the high level view of that, but how did you manage that? How did you manage the emotions that come along with it? Was there excitement? Was there fear? But what did that look like for you as you went through that?
Yeah, I mean, it was truly a gift, Tanner. I mean, we were really blessed. We had no idea. We weren't trying to have multiples. And, it was just, I think we were truly blessed to have that. And, luckily for me, this Marine Corps training, while I got to serve my country and learn some amazing things, I think it, provided an amazing foundation for being a super strong father, right? And raising a family and the things that you have to do, which was, get no sleep for months and months on end, then go to work and perform and provide, and all those other things that, we do as parents that are so important. But, now those triplets today are 24 years old, and I mean, they're my pride and joy, and I absolutely love every moment of it. And, it's kind of like us for, businesses that, children are. It's, you get out of it what you put into it. So that time that we invest in our family is just hugely important. And those are really the things that matter, right, at the end of the day, is your family, these relationships and things like that. And, we're really amazing humans, and we, given the challenges that we face in life, you'll be amazed at the things that you can, really rise to the occasion for, and especially when it's, it's your own kin. You're going to do what it takes to just really make it happen. But I can tell you, it was definitely a lot of sleepless nights, and we're basically changing diapers, round the clock. It was like, every 2-3 hours was a new evolution. That first like 6 to 9 months was, really crazy. And I worked also during that entire time too. So
It's absolutely amazing. I mean, I like I said, I can't even fathom what that would look like, and I have so much respect for those that have more than the 2, which is what I can comprehend at this point, and it's pretty amazing. So I'm really passionate about kind of knowing how folks pass on their knowledge. So you've got this incredible family, have been able to raise some pretty amazing children. Was there kind of a path that you took them on in terms of sharing some of this knowledge that you've been gaining over the years, teaching them some of the lessons with regards to financial freedom, to investments, things like that? Was that a topic that was talked about a lot as they were coming up? What's been kind of your approach to that?
Yeah, 100%. And I'll actually fast forward and give everyone, a case study of that is, I was raised, and, I think my parents' generation, right, it was taboo to really talk about money. People didn't talk about how much they made, how much they brought home, how much they were spending, where they were investing, and so it was really, kind of a mystery, right, in terms of what you do. But in our family, we talk about everything. We talk about, our real estate assets, different assets we invest in. And the cool thing about investing privately is you get to actually see an investment. And it could be a business, it could be an apartment building, and you actually get to go and see it. unlike, in the securities market where it's just paper, type investments. But let me give you a great example. So we mastermind in our family all the time about mindset, about wealth creation and all those things. And so my daughter, she went to Virginia Tech, my oldest, and we believe in the infinite banking policy, which is a cash value whole life insurance kind of strategy. This is a phenomenal strategy for business owners where you can actually take capital, you put it inside of a life insurance vehicle that grows completely tax-free. You can give it to your heirs tax-free. So there's kind of like some estate planning in there. Obviously, you have a death benefit to that. But the really cool thing is you can borrow against the capital, and your principal value continues to grow at the same time you're leveraging that dollar, putting it into another type of investment, right? So this is in terms of managing liquidity for business owners, because we all know it goes, up and down all the time. You got good quarters and occasionally there's a bad one. So providing liquidity that's in your control is huge. So my daughter we set up a policy for her in college. She invested during her summers in college. As soon as she got out, she bought a property with her, then fiance. And they bought a single family rental. They spent 18 months in it, kind of house hacking and fixing things up. They turned around and made about $130,000 profit in less than 2 years selling the property. And before that, they were renting, so they were cash flowing about $1,800 a month. They took that, paid off the life insurance loan, and then went and bought their next property in Nashville, and then they went and repeated the same process. And now she's 4 years out of school. She's now in her third property, and they're actually literally doing it again, right? So they put money into the policy. They're using leverage, right? So they're building an asset inside of the life insurance policy. They're creating cash flow that they can live on today she just had a baby, and so managing their family. So it's amazing to see how these strategies can really work for people. And if you think about her peers that graduate college, even if they're making a good six-figure salary, to save, even if they're saving 20% a year and putting it in a 401k, how long it's going to take to get to 100K. And they did that in 18 months.
That is such an incredible story. And I'm actually super eager to get into some of the nitty gritty of the actual strategy itself. If I'm not mistaken, this is kind of part of the phase of the holistic wealth strategy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent. So I'm excited to dig into some of that. I love that there's some very tangible, real stories of what this looks like with not just case studies out there, but with specific family members and things that you've been able to see firsthand. But let's talk a little bit about this infinite banking strategy. Life insurance. How does this differ from from an interest rate standpoint, from maybe some other traditional loans that might be out there? I know that there's the ability to do some kind of security backed lending where maybe you've got a taxable portfolio over at XYZ investment firm, and you can take loans against that. Is it similar strategy? How do they differ, and what are kind of some ways that you'd look at those from a banking strategy?
Sure. So yeah, I've literally spent the past 25 years understanding how centimillionaires, billionaires, decamillionaires really operate, and using advanced strategies like this that no one tells you about. And the reason, just so people are sure, the reason that you don't hear about this from your financial planner or things like that is because they don't understand it themselves, and they're also not compensated for that. They're compensated based on typically an assets under management strategy. So they're not going to talk to you about real estate or private investments or life insurance like this. Now, fundamentally, what all this is, it's a cash value life insurance policy, but it's critical that this is structured in a proper way, that you fund it over a period of time, and then you're able to actually accrue that cash value, which is going to compound at about a rate of 6%. So that's growing, though, pretty much tax-free. So that's probably closer to a 9-10%, right, type of return. And the great thing is too, it's completely non-correlated to the stock market. So when the stock market goes down, this isn't phased at all. And the way I like to value it as, look at the multiply. This is one of the things that, billionaires and centimillionaires do so well, is looking at multipliers for their capital. Okay. If you just invest in stock, let's say you have $10,000 worth of Tesla stock, the only thing you're hoping for is for it to go up in value. And hope is not a good strategy, right? So when we can invest in this life insurance, it's a complete multiplier. You have tax-free growth to it. You have the life insurance benefit to it. You have the estate planning. Like I said, you could give it to your heirs completely tax-free. You also have that liquidity where you can borrow against it, right? And then just use that at a low interest rate. And there's usually some kind of small spread there. And then you can take that and invest that into another asset, including your business, including your kids' college, really anything you want. But a lot of our investors actually invest in things like, another private real estate deal, which is going to give you cash flow, tax efficiency, and more appreciation on top of that. So now you have like a complete multiplier, right, at multiple levels. So that's why it's a very unique strategy, and not many people, even if you called an insurance company, they wouldn't know what you're talking about. It has to actually be set up by people who really understand it.
So how did you come across these? What was, you had mentioned doing some research and things like that, starting to learn how billionaires and centimillionaires, work their financial system and build wealth. What avenues, or how did you get in and start to find these pieces when there's so many in the marketplace, financial planners, insurance agents that may not understand these? What was your path to actually learning some of these advanced strategies?
Yeah, well, luckily today we have awesome podcasts like yours and YouTube and so many great resources. But back then, in 2000, Rich Dad Poor Dad literally just came out, and so it was more about networking, right? It was old school. It was getting to know people and getting inside of the industry and things like that. And then, as many entrepreneurs will understand, once you start deploying and investing capital, you quickly run out of capital to put away. So then you have to think about, okay, where can I find additional sources of capital? How can I add more velocity to my capital? How can I be more efficient with my capital? So thinking about all these things as an entrepreneur, you start to now look at alternative types of solutions, which is how I actually, came across this type of approach.
I love that. I love the fact that there's still something to be said. And I know this is, number of years ago, but actually networking, getting out and having conversations with real people. And I would highly encourage for everyone that's listening to this, that's still important to do today. And if you can go build your network, have conversations, see what folks are doing, especially those that are, multiple steps ahead of you in terms of a financial aspect. So I absolutely love that. So you wrote the book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy. And in that book, there's the phased approach to holistic wealth. Can you take us through kind of what these phases are?
Yeah, absolutely. So it all really starts with having a vision statement and being crystal clear on what that vision looks like. So it's the first time, when you go on a road trip with your family, what's the first thing you do? You punch in your GPS coordinates and you know exactly where you're going, because the road to get there is going to have all kinds of undulations to it, right? Things that you don't, expect. And especially if your vision is big enough, you may have no idea actually how you're going to get there, but you kind of know where you're going, right? So this is so important, and we do this in businesses. The first thing we do is create a vision statement and a mission statement in business, but when's the last time you've actually done that for yourself and your family? And you know exactly what your wealth vision looks like, and your personal vision of what you want to accomplish in life. What does the quality of your relationships look like in 10 years? If I give you $1 billion today, Tanner, what would you be doing? Where would you be? And who would you be with? Mm-hmm. Right? You've really got to get clarity around these things, because this vision is what's going to get you through the tough times, right? And even manage yourself during the good times as well. So the entire holistic wealth strategy is underpinned by having a super strong vision statement. And then we move into the first stage, which is really all about you. It's all about mindset, and just think about maybe the person you went to high school with that's in the same town with the same set of friends and the same job, right? Versus someone like Elon Musk, right? Who, started with humble beginnings in South Africa. And, it's like every month, every week, he's coming up with an entirely new business and probably will become the first trillionaire, right? That we have. What's the difference? It's all mindset, right? So how can you think bigger, right? How can you set goals that support that vision? You can create habits to actually meet those goals and really get there. And that's the difference between being an entrepreneur and an investor as well. It all starts with, that space, that most important real estate space, which is between your ears. After that, we then move into, really, I call it like the 6 forms of capital, Tanner, right? Which is, most people are always thinking about it in terms of financial capital, right? I need to grow my financial capital. It's going to increase my net worth. But really what is going to increase your net worth, and the true wealthy that really understand, is it's also about intellectual capital, relationship capital, human capital, physical capital, spiritual capital, and emotional capital. All of these things are really, truly, holistically what encapsulates someone who is truly wealthy. There were so many times in my life I didn't have any capital to invest. Well, what did I do? I worked on my intellectual capital. I could get smarter, right? By meeting different people. I improved my relationship capital, right? Tony Robbins talks all the time about improving your proximity, right? What does the level, the 5 people that you're spending most of your time with, right? Is that taking you closer to your vision or further away from it, right? So all of these different dimensions of capital are super important, if you truly want to achieve really holistic wealth, because this is very different than being rich, which is, having things, right? And toys.
I think there's something to be said about the mindset piece and the ability to dream maybe a little bit bigger. I know that there's been a couple points in even my journey where I was reminded just how small I was dreaming, and got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain on some things that were actually possible, and it forced me to kind of think about things in a different way than I had previously. I'm curious, in your journey, has there been a couple moments like that for you where you were exposed to something that you hadn't been exposed to before and saw a different world in terms of being able to dream bigger, see things that were a little bit more on what was possible in life? Was there any moment like that for you?
I think it's really an aggregate, right, of different things. And probably the biggest breakthroughs have come from being in mastermind communities, which is why we've actually created our own mastermind community. And I'm part of several myself and spend almost 6 figures on communities, because you're exposed to like-minded people with bigger ideas, big visions, and get you out of your own box to be thinking about things in different ways, right? If you're constantly in the same bubble, you're not going to challenge the status quo, right? You're not going to be thinking about a bigger future, and you're just making linear gains. So I think it's really who you surround yourself with. You have to change your thinking, right? Those are some of the big things. And of course, tons of books and reading and podcasts and all the things you do to really, try to invest in yourself. And I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways, Tanner, right? Is that through this journey for myself, I've learned that, look, we're trying to invest in different assets and grow our net worth. But do you know what the biggest asset is of all? It's yourself. Like, anytime I invest in my health, in my mindset, in my education, in my relationships, anything that I can do, I get a 10x, 100x return. Right? So I double down on that. I double down on things that work for me. So that's really at the basis of this in terms of, mindset and these multiple dimensions of capital is looking at yourself and physically putting yourself on your balance sheet as the most important asset.
Would you say that if I'm a successful business owner or entrepreneur listening to this or watching this later on, would you say that is the first place to start? Or is there another place that you would recommend if I've already accomplished some things in business and I've clearly got a few things going on? Does it still come back down to
100%,
investing in ourselves
100%.
first?
Yeah. Again, if I gave you 100 million, right, today, and you didn't have, your mindset buttoned up and you're operating out of scarcity all the time, you maybe have a poor set of friends, you have poor habits and things like that. All money is going to do is amplify those bad habits. If you have positive habits, it's going to amplify those positive habits so that you can create a bigger impact in the world.
I'm curious if you've ever asked this question. I'm like thinking about it in my head. If you were to actually go to someone and ask the question, if I gave you $100 million today, what would you do with it? How much can you tell about a person by the way they answer that question?
You can tell a lot. You can completely tell what level they're operating at. And I would guarantee you that most people wouldn't even know how to answer the question, actually, right? Beyond saying that, I'd go buy myself a Lambo and a bigger house, right? They'd go through maybe 3 things or something like that. But here's a great exercise people can work on to get more clarity on that, right? And who you want to become. It's creating a top 100 be, do, have list. Right? So who do you want to be? What do you want to do in your lifetime? Right? And what you want to have. And to me, like I see things like, for instance, we just, finished building a new house that took us over 3 years to build, but it was a vision that I had to really invest in my family. So as my family now is growing bigger and, the kids are having kids and we want them to come back and see us and invest time and create unforgettable experiences, right? So I'm building things in that manner. That's how I'm really seeing the world. But people should really look at that lens, right? I think that's a great way to really contextualize it, is the be, do, have list, not just material things.
That is a framework that I learned fairly early on in kind of this next phase of my career and being within our family business, within the Action Coach firm. And the be, do, have framework has been core to so many things that we do. And it's pretty amazing when you realize, we've got a big philosophy that, business is fantastic and you want to grow and build a business, but at the end of the day, business is a vehicle for the life that you want to live. It's a path to achieving those types of things. And we have to become the person that we need to be in order to do the things that we want, in order to have the things that we want. And that have isn't just material things. It's relationships. It's the I think you had mentioned the spiritual, the emotional, all the other aspects of what holistic wealth is, and I really appreciate that approach. So I want to take just a couple minutes here and talk a little bit about Pantheon overall. So what types of clients do you work with today? If I'm sitting in the audience and I'm listening to this, how would I know that I might be a really good fit to reach out and have a conversation with you or someone else on your team?
Yeah, well, we're mostly working with accredited investors, which is basically you've got more than $1 million in net worth outside of your primary residence, or you make at least $200K for the past 2 years, right? So accredited investors have the ability to invest in private assets, right? So you're going to see better return profiles. So what we've really done at Pantheon is really create, again, this overall solution of like a flywheel around your wealth, right? So we actually have software that helps you measure and manage how you're doing, and that's across all asset classes. So your business, your real estate holdings, not just stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? We have software to help you do that. You can invest with us in private assets. We have great opportunities, things like one of our sectors that we focus on is oil and gas, where entrepreneurs, you can actually offset your active income. We have an upcoming opportunity this fall that it's up to 92% tax offset of your active income, right? That's huge for business owners. So that's pretty good. And we're also looking at, other opportunities that are cash flowing, high yield, tax efficient, and then also grow, and they're non-correlated to the stock market. So we have lots of opportunities. We also run a virtual family office for high net worth individuals to really act as your fractional chief investment officer and help you organize all these different business entities, make sure you have the right asset protection in place, make sure that you have the right tax strategy in place to support, your vision and where you're heading. So we have that. And then we also have a mastermind community, because it's all around surrounding yourself with like-minded people, trying to go 10x, trying to go to that next level. And when you can be in that kind of room, you instantly level up, and the things that you learn. It's so fascinating, Tanner, because there's a lot of people that, this is a high ticket, mastermind community. And some people will, when you look at things, if you're the type of person that looks at something as an expense, then you already have failed at the mindset game. You have to look at everything as an investment. And if it's not an investment and it is truly an expense, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should be looking at everything as an investment, because we had people more than 10x. Our goal is that you actually 10x the investment you make to come into the community, or you can't renew, right? So we're seeing people way more than 10x with all kinds, getting new ideas, new relationships, forming partnerships, new opportunities, new ways of thinking, tax savings, right? All these really amazing things. So that's, I'm really grateful to be able to be part of people's journey in that manner. And I guess just to summarize, all of this, right? Again, it's thinking about wealth like an entrepreneur should. It's not taking this prescriptive, advice, right, from Wall Street, which says put everything in stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and then wait till you're 65. No, we're entrepreneurs. We want to live today. We want freedom of money so we can live a big life. And every year, every 90 days is going to be bigger than the prior 90 days. So I want control. This is also about sovereignty. So I want control over my assets. I want control over my future. And I want to build and create big impact.
For most of the audience here for this show, we're talking entrepreneurs that are traditionally kind of at that growth pivot point. I would say those that are, starting to hit their first few $1 million in business. They are entrepreneurs, right? They have an entity structure set up, but now they're starting to look at what does this next layer look like? Is it do I need to start setting up the structure to have a holding company that owns this, and then I can set up for real estate investment? And I start thinking about these things, but we're not quite there yet. What would be your advice to someone in that phase where they're right about ready to start turning the dial and saying, I'm ready to take this next step and move into true wealth creation? What would be your advice? Should they start having conversations with folks like yourselves, start getting into mastermind groups like you've outlined here today? Is this that moment for them to start that conversation?
Yeah, totally, right? Because you don't know what you don't know, right? And most of us, we have so many clients that, they might have had a $50 million exit, but what did they learn about wealth? Again, their parents weren't really talking about it. And then all the peers, when we all grew up, it was just, you just invest in your 401k, or it's some version of a 60-40 split in, stocks and bonds. I mean, that doesn't work anymore, right? And especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're leaving so much on the table, right? I know we have many clients that are, making 7 figures, but they're paying 50% in taxes. Okay. We also have many clients who that have now been with us for a while and are paying nothing in taxes, right? Just think about what that would do, right, for your income trajectory, right? It's really huge. Knowledge plus action is real power. So, if you're sitting on the sidelines, right, I would really strongly encourage you to start to take action, to learn. If you've been listening to this podcast, you're getting a lot of value out of it, then take action, right, and do something. You might make a mistake, but that's how we learn, right? Mistakes are all part of the game, right? And it's the same with investing, is very similar to business. You have to start trying different things, see what can work, and we can always make more money, right? And money is just energy to fuel the things that we want to do. But in order to start, you have to kind of start somewhere, and you want to have to put that, together.
There you go, folks. You got to take action. Probably the number one thing. If there's something you can take out of today, take some sort of action and do something with it. So, Dave, I want to shift over to a couple rapid fire questions as we kind of wrap up the conversation today. Kind of a fun way that I like to wrap out these particular conversations. But first one for you here is, what's one leadership lesson that you've learned along the way that you still lean on today?
I think it's really all about your values, your core values, Tanner, right? I believe that my core values are just, who I'm made up of. And when I can be true and congruent with my core values, it's very natural for me. And I feel my best. I feel fulfilled. I feel like I'm creating value in the way that I was meant to be, right? So there's no friction there. I think some people struggle with this, right? Because they're, maybe running a business that they shouldn't be, or they have imposter syndrome or things like that, and they're just faking it and all these kind of things. But I think when you can really truly internalize your core values, what those might mean to you. So for me, it's integrity, it's leadership, it's teamwork, it's leading by example, it's serving others first, right? And when I can do that, when I can serve others first, like, when I can create value, that's big. Like, I feel fulfilled, So I think not enough people really talk about that, and I think that can be your strategic differentiator, right? As a person, as a company in your business, and really who you are and the impact that you want to create.
That's really powerful. When you think back on advice that you've received over the years, I could ask you what's the best piece of advice. I think that's always a challenging one to answer given, the phase of the season that you're in. But if you think back on the advice that you've received, what's a memorable piece of advice that stands out to you in your mind?
Okay, so here's a great one that people can completely take action on, and it's like an absolute game changer. So you can actually go to Kolbe.com, Kolbe, and take what's called a Kolbe test, which actually measures the conative or the instinctual part of your brain that says how you're wired to be able to do things, right? We've all heard of Myers-Briggs, and we've taken those kind of personality tests and things like that. But for instance, this one, there's 4 key dimensions to it, but one of them is how fast are you in terms of a quick start? Like, do you take an idea and you just run with it? So I know if you got entrepreneurs in the audience, most of them are high quick starts. Take an idea and just completely run with it. How are you going to execute it? No idea. But right, we've got lots of different ideas. So most entrepreneurs are wired this way. But if you ever wonder why, let's say you've got this great idea you think that can change the world, and then your spouse might be saying, oh, hold on a second, I need to do research. I need to talk to people. Let's slow down, right? These are the dynamics of this. This is, I learned this through a strategic coach and Dan Sullivan that I've been part of for almost a decade. And it's a phenomenal tool to help you discover more about yourself and those, instinctual feel those instincts that we really have in terms of how we do things. And then you should actually be applying that to your family, all of our team members. When we hire new people, we understand where they come from. I hire people around me that are high fact finders, high follow through, so they can execute and get things done. So the more you can really understand about this is a big game changer.
That's really cool. Kolbe.com, Kolbe, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe it's the A. They have a couple different assessments, but it's like $40. The Kolbe A is what you want to take. It'd take you 20 minutes.
That sounds like a very worthwhile investment of both time and capital in understanding yourself there. So, Dave, one last question. This one's probably the most important question that we've got all day for the viewers, for the listeners. If they want to connect with you, if they want to continue to follow this amazing work that you continue to put out there, I know you've got a podcast and you've got some other things going on. What is the best way for the audience to connect and continue to grow in this knowledge that you continue to share out there today?
You bet, Tanner. What I wanted to do for your audience is actually provide a free copy of my book. We just kind of talked about a couple of the phases. So if you want to learn about the remaining phases and kind of get more, if any of that resonated for you, you can just go to holisticwealthstrategy.com.
Highly encourage everyone who's listening to this. If you've gotten to this point, you've gotten some sort of value out of this, and you got to continue on this journey. Dave, that is an incredible offer. I appreciate that for this audience here, and I encourage everyone to go ahead and take advantage of it. This has been an incredible conversation. I know I could sit here and continue to talk your ear off for probably another 2 hours, Dave, but I do want to be respectful of the time that you've provided and invested with me today, with the audience here today, and I just want to say thank you for taking that time.
You bet. Really appreciate the opportunity, Tanner.